to Faithful Friday. We're going over Exodus chapters 25 through 40. I know last week we said we was going to break it up into two, but I'm just going to go ahead and do 25 through 40 this week so we can go ahead and get into the next chapter. So let's get right into it. I have quite a bit of notes. So let me see. We're starting at chapter 25, and this is the construction of the tabernacle. God provides detailed instructions for building the tabernacle, a portable sanctuary where his presence will dwell amongst the people. The instructions cover the tabernacle's construction, the Ark of the Covenant, and various priestly garments and rituals. Now, pretty much chapters 25 through 31 covers the construction of the church. Tabernacle is church, pretty much. He was very detailed down to the garments, down to the type of screws, what everything was made of, everything. He was very precise with his instructions. So in this, he gave them details about that as well as the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the Ark of the Covenant was pretty much like a portable church. It was something that the children of Israel could carry with them so God could dwell among them. It was certain things that was also placed inside the Ark of the Covenant. After we go through the chapters, I'm going to go through because I wrote down a few questions and then I looked and got the answers to them within the scriptures, within the different chapters between chapters 25 and 40, and got the answers to it, where it talk about the different things that was in the Ark of the Covenant as well as the things that he wanted in the church. This includes the golden candlestick, the showbread, the altar of incense. Yeah, those three things were in the church. So I got a couple of things that I will read afterwards, but here he's given instructions. Pretty much he gives the instructions from all of the chapters, pretty much. From chapters 32 to 34, while I'm going to give us a little synopsis of that. While Moses is on the mountain receiving the tablets of law, the Israelites grow impatient and create a golden calf to worship. God is angered and Moses intercedes for the people. Moses destroys the calf and about 3,000 people are killed as a punishment. Moses then ascends the mountains again, where he receives a new set of tablets. God renews his covenant with Israel and reveals himself to Moses in a more intimate way. Now, this is just in chapters 32 through 34. So pretty much, Moses is getting instructions from God. As I stated before, it's like Moses is the mediator or middleman between God and the chosen people, the children of Israel. What is currently happening here is that Moses went up to hear from God because he's receiving all of these different things of what to do and what they're building. He's getting all of this information. However, they're just waiting patiently for him to come, but they're like, well, he's being impatient. It's taking too long. So what they did, after God has given them food, has given them water on numerous occasions, he's parted the Red Sea, he's killed their enemies. I mean, he freed them from slavery. they're still going against God. It's still like he's not doing enough for them. So they take all of the gold and the different things they have and they make this golden calf, and they're dancing around it and worshiping it and all of this, like as if they didn't created themselves their own God. God sees this and he sends Moses back down. Moses is so angry at the people that he throws the tablets, the 10 commandments that God just gave him, because he was just so upset. It's like, what do God have to do for you to be obedient and listen and obey? I mean, they just were disloyal people. Just as much stuff as he did for them, they weren't appreciative. They were disloyal, unappreciative, and these were the chosen people. And God was just fed up. So in this, it says that Moses interceded for them. So he was like an intercessor for the children of Israel, because this is not the first time that God was about to wash his hands with them. It was the mumbling and grumbling that they were doing and stating that, well, we could have been left where we were at, basically in slavery. Like, we had it better when we was in slavery. Just because you don't see water right here in front of you, or you don't see the food right here in front of you right when you think it should be there. And that's just how we do today. We're quick to doubt God. We're quick to put him aside and do things ourselves and in ourselves. One mainly is not waiting on God and God's approval for our mate. We're always running off and just, he's not moving fast enough, so you hop with the first thing smoking and you're running down the aisle with them. And then when things are not working out, then you're looking back to God. And really, he don't have to do anything because you did it yourself. And this is the same thing. It's like he grew weary of them. He was tired of proving himself and showing that he was God to these people. They didn't appreciate it. So chapters 32 through 34 shows this. God spoke to Moses, gave him the tablets, had him to go. He's seeing they're down here worshiping the calf. Like, go back down there. You know, I'm paraphrasing. Go down there. You know, just go on back down there, because they created this statue and all the rest of this stuff. And it's like miracle after miracle was happening. I mean, Jesus was feeding them like food was raining down for them. The water was not drinkable. He made the water drinkable. It wasn't like he led them to another. No, the tree was through in there, and the bitter water became sweet and water for them able to drink. So he continued to do things right before their own eyes for them to see that he was for them and that he was a provider and a way maker. But they did not, and maybe they did get it. Maybe they did get it, but they just didn't want to obey. They just, how quickly they forget. And as I said, that's exactly how we do today. God has came through for us numerous of times, and we still doubt him. We still go ahead and make decisions without consulting him. And a lot of different things, thinking that we know better for ourselves than he do. So these chapters really, I mean, out of everything that we've been reading, this really, touches home for me, because in a lot of doubting and a lot of things myself, because I like to know or know things ahead of time. And having faith and putting your trust in God is not knowing what's next. And it was like the children of Israel was the same way, because they didn't know, and they had to walk by faith and not by sight. They didn't know exactly where they were going. They didn't have a compass. They didn't have a GPS back then. And God didn't say, this is the final destination here, and they knew what the end result was going to be. They just had to go and trust and follow God as he gave them instructions going along. And I think in that, at times, they grew weary. And they started to mumble and grumble. And that is not having faith. For one, being disloyal. He brought them out of slavery. Why would he bring them that far to disappoint them or let them down? And they just didn't fully put their trust in him. If they did, they would have waited patiently for Moses to come back down, but they didn't, because it took too long. Just like us, when things take longer than the time frame that we give God to do things, then we step in and get to doing it ourselves. And that's basically what they did. They created them a God. So as we move on to chapters 35 through 40, and I'm kind of grouping these together because that was pretty much one of the things that happened outside of all of these laws. I mean, during this time, God was just spewing out laws after laws for them to abide by. And what the punishment is if they didn't obey the laws. How to present sacrifices. What sacrifices to present to him. So, chapters 35 through 40, and I'll just paraphrase it and put it in a summary. The Israelites followed their instructions to construct the tabernacle and its furnishings. The book concludes with the tabernacle being set up and the cloud of God's glory filling it, signifying his presence among his people. Exodus is foundational in understanding the themes of liberation, covenant, and divine guidance, which are central to the identity of Israel and to Judeo-Christian traditions. Now, Exodus concludes that they built the tabernacle where God would dwell. Now, I'm reminded of a book that was written by Juanita Bynum, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, it's The Threshing Floor. And it teaches you how to pray. And it's, you know, the saying, enter his gates with thanksgiving, into his courts with praise. She tells you about each stage of praise as you go into worship. And she goes from the outer court into the inner court. You start off by thanking God. And that's how it starts. Thanking him for the different things you have. Thanking him for waking you up. Those things. Then you start to praise God and who God is and who he is to you. And those things. I said that you enter into the gate and you're now in the inner court. And then it goes on. So, please excuse the dogs. They still here. All 5 puppies. Okay. So when it was going over these things, and you'll see later on when I'm going over what I said, those dogs is throwing me off. About the golden candlestick, the showbread, the altar of incense, all of that. It's also a veil, so like a curtain, a veil, and behind there is where some of the things are. It's like stages of prayer, but it speaks of that church, the first church. That book is really good, by the way. It really is. It really helped me, and it was before I had even read this chapter and information. So if that's something you would like to read after reading the book of Exodus, that's a very good book to read to be able to enter into God's presence. It's by Juanita Bynum, and it's called, I'm sure that it's called The Threshing Floor. I do believe it's called The Threshing Floor. It's in my phone. But yeah, I think it's called The Threshing Floor. So here I have a couple of questions that I put in here. And I don't think that these are the questions I really want to go over. I did get some different questions. Okay. So here, the question is, because the entire book from chapter 25 to 40, or what chapter was, from 25 to 40 was basically on the instructions of the church. Please excuse me, I am tired. So one of the questions that I put down, and I got the information too, was why did God give such precise instructions on building the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle in the book of Exodus? So some of the reasons are God's holiness and presence. He wanted to dwell amongst the people. The tabernacle was a place for them to gather and be in the presence of God. And the Ark of the Covenant was a pretty much like mobile church that they would carry with them from place to place. So just to read what the notes that I have, the tabernacle and ark was to be the physical manifestation of God's presence among his people. Pretty much what I said. The ark, which contained the tablets of the law, which was the 10th commandment, symbolized God's covenant with Israel. The tabernacle was the place where God would meet with the Israelites and where his glory would dwell. The specific instructions highlight the reverence and honor due to God. The miraculous details reflect the seriousness with which the Israelites were to approach God's presence. This emphasis on holiness helps to underline God's transcendence and his desire for his people to worship him in a manner that is worthy of his majesty. So that's pretty much the reason why he wanted the Ark of the Covenant as well as the church built. And then it was the divine order and perfection, the symbolism of design, the preparation for worship, the covenant relationship and identity, future significance, and God's authority and sovereignty. Say hi, Mook. Say hi. Okay. The next question was what was placed in the Ark of the Covenant. So what was placed in the Ark of the Covenant? I think I mentioned a little bit of it earlier. The 10th commandments, the tablets were placed in there. The pot of manna, which the pot of manna was what God fed the children of Israel. They did eat that for 40 years. and Aaron's rod that budded. So let's rewind back a little bit with the 10 Commandments. These were the stone tablets that God issued to Moses when he went on Mount Sinai. So he issued them the first time. Moses got mad because they had built the golden staff when he came down, and he threw them. Oh, and I did forget to mention that, well, I think I said that 3,000 people died from that whole little shenanigans that they did by building that golden calf and was worshiping it and all of that. And 3,000 people lost their lives from that. So he went back on the mountain, and God gave him new tablets, and these are the tablets that were placed in the Ark of the Covenant. He also put a jar of the manna was placed in the ark to serve as a reminder of God's provision and faithfulness during the Israelites' journey through the wilderness. God wanted that to be a remembrance of him being faithful to them regardless of how they acted. He still was faithful by having food rain from heaven. And also, not only a reminder of his faithfulness, but the provisions of him making a way. Every time it was something that they needed, he made a way. Each and every time. So then we go into Aaron's rod that budded. This was the rod of Aaron, the brother of Moses, which miraculously budded, blossomed, and produced almonds as a sign of God's chosen priesthood. This miracle confirmed that Aaron and his descendants were to serve as priests before God, as it was a direct sign of divine selection and authority. So God wanted to show signs of chosen priesthood. So that was of significance. So that was placed in the Ark of the Covenant as well. Now, the purpose of placing these items in the ark was to serve as a covenant reminders of God's covenant with his people, his provision, and his chosen leadership. They symbolized his presence, guidance, and the special relationship he had with Israel. The ark itself was considered the most sacred object in the tabernacle and later in the temple, signifying God's throne on earth, where his presence would dwell among his people. So, moving right along, why were there detailed instructions on the tabernacle? So the detailed instructions for building the tabernacle had several significant purposes. These instructions were given by God to Moses on Mount Sinai and are important for the following reasons. Here again, divine presence and holiness, symbolism and worship, obedience and covenant relationship, preparation for future worship, God's design and perfect order, a foreshadowing of Christ, and that's it. The detailed instructions for the tabernacle in Exodus are significant because they not only show the importance of God's presence amongst his people, but also convey deep spiritual truths about worship, holiness, obedience, and the relationship between God and humanity. The tabernacle served as a sacred space where God's glory would dwell, and its design pointed forward to the ultimate fulfillment of God's redemption plan through Jesus Christ. So, what is the significance of the golden candlestick, the showbread, and the altar of incense? So, the golden candlestick, the symbolic significance for that is the light of God's presence. It symbolizes the light of God's presence. It symbolizes the Holy Spirit as well as eternal light. The showbread or shewbread, it symbolizes God's provision, the presence of God, and Jesus Christ. The altar of incense symbolizes prayer and worship, Christ's intercession, and also holiness and purity. These three elements together emphasizes God's presence, provision, and communication with his people. And these are the items that was in the tabernacle. Now, I think I did go a little further than just those three. I also went far as to find out what the altar of sacrifice and laver was. The altar of sacrifice was, he gave the dimensions of how big and everything it would be. He gave the design. It had, it had 4 horns on its 4 corners, made as part of the structure and overlaid with brass. The altar was hollow, constructed with boards. It had accessories, and the purpose of it was used for burnt offerings and sacrifices as a central part of the tabernacle's worship practices. So that's what the altar of sacrifice was. Now, the laver symbolizes purity and cleansing, both physically and spiritually, foreshadowing the cleansing from sin through Christ. So, the purpose of the laver was used for ceremonial washings by Aaron and his son before they entered the tabernacle or approached the altar, to avoid death as commanded by God. This ritual symbolizes purity and preparation before performing sacred duties. Now, back then, you would fall dead if you came in there. So this is one of the things that they were doing. This laver was where they would do the ceremonial washings, because just anybody during these times could not walk into that church. It was more respect, authority, and things. It was held in a high regard. You just could not go any kind of way or do any kind of thing and you were there at the church. People was just falling dead, and that'll show later on in other books of the Bible where they talk about that and talk about the church, the tabernacle. Trying to look at my notes and make sure, because those were the only questions that I pretty much had. I know we were going to break it up into 2, but when I listened to the audio of it and read through it, it was pretty much all giving instructions on everything, pretty much, and then instructions on everything of how to build the tabernacle as well as the Ark of the Covenant. And then it was talking about how to do their sacrifices, what to sacrifice, and all of those different things. And I think it spills right into Leviticus, and it picks up in there of where the laws are still going out. I believe in the next couple of chapters. They're not really long because I think next week we'll be doing Leviticus. Leviticus, I believe, is the next chapter in the Bible, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I know I'm not a book scholar, a Bible scholar, but I'm going right along with this with the rest of you all. So, the Bible app really gets on my nerves with these commercials or ads at the beginning, and it takes it a minute to even open the app. It's so irritating to me. Sometimes I just open it and lay my phone down and then walk away and wait for it to open, because you would sit here for two or 3 minutes. It's like, come on. If I haven't clicked to download or purchase whatever it is, I'm not going to do it. So, okay. There. Okay, I'm in. Okay, I was correct. So, we'll be in the book of Leviticus next week. To me, Leviticus is pretty much a book that is going to go through all of the laws as well. It's 27 chapters. Yeah, it's 27 chapters. Really, the book of Leviticus is not long, although it's 27 chapters. It's not really long. And as I stated, it's still kind of going through the law. So I'm going to summarize it the way that I did today and dig a little deeper into certain things, like how I did with saying what was in the Ark of the Covenant, giving the purpose of those things and all of that. The same thing as the stuff that was in the tabernacle. So I'll do questions like that, but pretty much I'm going to summarize the chapters, because a lot of it is just God giving instructions and laws to Moses for him to then in turn give the information to the children of Israel to help them with the building of everything. So at the end of Exodus, we know that they have the tabernacle built. So we will pick up into Leviticus next week. Wow, we're not even that far in. So, yes, we'll pick up next week in the book of Leviticus, starting at chapter 1. Pretty much read all of the book of Leviticus, because we will be going over the entire book. It's pretty much, as I stated, the laws. So, don't skim over it. And you can even get the Bible app and listen to it, because I want us to starting from the beginning of the Bible, and we're going to study it and dissect it and apply it to our life today. Pretty much what we do today, life practices today. So it's a lot of different things and a lot of the laws and different things, as you see in Leviticus when you get into there, because I have kind of read ahead or listen ahead so I can prepare my notes. Leviticus, with the laws and the different things that he's giving in there, I mean, it's a lot. I don't know if it's in Leviticus or if it was in Numbers, because I went on ahead into Numbers and Deuteronomy, where they have to cut the sacrifice, the animal that they're sacrificing. They have to cut it a certain way. They have to burn certain organs and all of this different stuff. Like, they almost have to become a surgeon with some of the stuff and rules and stuff. So don't skip past any of that. Make sure that you read all of that information, because it's very important. And those are some of the things that I'm going to pull out and kind of go over and discuss a little bit. So I can't remember if it's in Leviticus, Numbers, or Deuteronomy. So Yeah. Thank you for joining me today. And next week we'll be in the book of Leviticus. Have a great day. And hope you all had a great holiday season. And Happy New Year to everyone.